With surefire hits like Behemoth and Alien Rogue Incursion right around the corner, you might be thinking, guys, this seems like a terrible time to make a list of best PSVR 2 games, and you're absolutely right. What we've learned is that there's never a good time to make a list because there's always great games coming practically every month, but that's okay. A non-stop flood of games is a pretty great problem to have. So whether you're a new PlayStation VR 2 owner or you've had one for a while, here are the top 50 games we think your life is way worse without.
If you pick up a PSVR 2 headset, one of the games that always gets recommended first is Kayak VR Mirage, because the environments are practically photorealistic. So enjoy the views. And hey, maybe you'll get in a little exercise along the way.
While some people will criticize After the Fall for the repetitive gameplay, others have sank hundreds of hours into the multiplayer. The weapon haptics and adaptive trigger support feel amazing, making the PSVR 2 version of After the Fall the absolute best version available.
Into the eyes of the red judge and still think.
Metal Hellsinger takes the classic Doom formula of demon slaying to a metal soundtrack, breaks the fourth wall, and has you firing weapons and performing glory kills to the beat of the music. It's a little basic, but the non-stop action is so great, you probably won't even care.
During a time where VR gamers have been overrun with roguelikes, Mixed Realms made sure Hellsweeper stood out from the pack with a good assortment of weapons and an amazing locomotion system that feels stripped straight out of Devil May Cry. Featuring double jumps, backflips, wall runs, a slow motion bullet time, Hellsweeper is exactly what hardcore VR gamers are looking for.
Having found massive success on the flat screen, the developers over at Fireproof Games decided to try their hand at VR and brought the Room VR, A Dark Matter, to PSVR 1, and it quickly became one of our favorite puzzle games. The PSVR 2 version brought with it only minor improvements, so luckily the game itself is still awesome.
Listen, we all know that Supermassive's second roller coaster rail shooter isn't nearly as scary or even as good as their first, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't play it. Some of the environments here are awesome. The Don't Blink sections utilize eye tracking in a way that we've never seen in VR before. And hey, come on, it all takes place on a massive roller coaster.
Puzzling Places is a relaxing, engaging puzzle experience, truly enhanced by the VR medium. Solving 3D jigsaw puzzles, photographed from beautiful locations around the world, all in stunning high resolution. With endless DLC to choose from and the recent addition to 2-player co-op, Puzzling Places is an amazing way to spend an afternoon.
Looking a lot like Wolfenstein 3D, but playing more like a modern roguelike shooter, Compound's simple formula is strangely addictive. Jump into a game, clear the floor of enemies, and take the elevator up to the next floor. It's deceptively simple, but also deceptively difficult, and only for gamers looking to take on a real challenge.
Developed by just one person over at White Door Games, Cosmodread throws you onto an infested space station and tasks you with getting everything up and running without dying. Finding blueprints to craft new weapons and audio logs that fill in the story keeps things interesting, but the roguelike elements make it infinitely replayable and make every run a blast.
Comes a mighty medieval adventure. Take that.
The trailers for Barbaria looked a little bit too much like Gorn, but other than being a fun arena fighter, the two games basically have nothing in common. Half of the game is about unlocking new towers, traps, and fighters to construct your own base with, which ends up being just as much fun as going out and attacking other people's bases.
Everything can kill.
You are given the opportunity to find your lane. What interests you?
Being a security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria isn't anything new to Five Nights at Freddy's fans, but playing these terrifying mini-games in VR is infinitely scarier than the flat-screen versions have ever been. There's a good variety of games to play, not to mention a ton of secrets and unlockable difficulties that most horror fans are gonna love.
Try a little of everything and find what speaks to you.
Acclaimed PC VR game Vertigo 2 made its way over to PlayStation VR2 earlier this year, and despite some gripes about frame rate, there's no denying this is one epic single-player adventure. Plenty of combat, silly character designs, a good amount of narrative, and even some branching paths are all here to keep things interesting.
If you're a PSVR 2 gamer wishing we had an Assassin's Creed VR game, you're in luck. Fast Travel's Vampire the Masquerade is about as close as you'll get. You'll have to be stealthy, hiding in the shadows or traversing the rooftops to avoid being seen, and as you progress you'll unlock more and more vampire skills, to the detriment of the humans around you.
Search the area. The monster's here.
Enhanced Games is charging a $10 upgrade fee for the PSVR 2 version of Tetris Effect Connected, but when you see the crystal clear graphics and particle effects, not to mention the awesome haptics from our new controllers and headset, you'll probably agree that it was worth the money, and that this is one of the best versions of Tetris ever made.
This one kinda came out of nowhere. The Seventh Guest was an early CD-ROM puzzle game, using a lot of point-and-click mechanics and basic FMV, so it had to be completely reworked to make it a proper VR game. And that's exactly what Vertigo did. They filmed the actors in volumetric 3D, recreated the atmospheric manner, and a lot of the puzzles, whilst getting rid of the stuff that didn't work so well in 1993's game.
No one came out that night.
The core gameplay of rail shooter Zombieland Headshot Fever was already a blast before it hit PSVR 2, featuring plenty of zombies to kill, secondary objectives, and time bonuses, giving you reasons to replay the same levels again and again. But the enhanced graphics, adaptive triggers, and haptics of the PSVR 2 version make it the best way to play it.
We've given Vertigo games some shit over the years for the jankiness of Arizona Sunshine on PSVR 1. But with the release of Arizona Sunshine Remake and Arizona Sunshine 2, they've perfected the gunplay and refined the graphics, movement, and silly co-op animations, resulting in a couple of extremely fun, albeit really simple, zombie shooters.
Bye, Fred.
When I first saw the trailer for Stilt, I assumed it would be about pure chaos and bouncing yourself wildly from place to place. So I was thrilled to find out that the actual gameplay, just like a 2D platformer, is all about learning the mechanics and pulling off some really precise jumps. Add in some fun puzzle solving, boss fights, awesome multiplayer support, and a ton of levels, and you've got a must-have VR platformer.
Machines attack this settlement. Machines don't attack settlements.
Call of the Mountain lets you experience the dangerous, post-apocalyptic world-filled mechanical creatures the series is known for, but in first-person VR. Sure, there is a lot of climbing, and it gets a bad rap for not being a true Horizon game, but what's here is still pretty awesome.
For everyone needing a break from Beat Saber, Synth Riders provides a great alternative with awesome songs you can't find in any other rhythm game. And it also features incredibly trippy experience levels, great haptics, and multiplayer support for up to 10 players online that honestly puts Beat Saber's basic PvP mode to shame.
What is that place?
Despite Green Hell and Song in the Smoke being the same survival genre, the two games couldn't feel any different. Green Hell lets you chop down trees, break branches with your hands, and overall focuses way more on telling a story. The Spirits of the Amazonia helps pad the game clock, but the upcoming multiplayer update is what I'm waiting for.
I gotcha.
Valley of Death.
In a world where the term roguelite is practically a death sentence, the Light Brigade stands out on PSVR2 and demonstrates that roguelite doesn't have to mean no content, especially considering all the updates it's gotten since launch. Use weapons and magic to take down enemies and unlock new abilities, new items, and new classes that all make the Light Brigade endlessly replayable.
Let me tell you a little story.
When we heard we were getting an enhanced edition of Tales from the Galaxy's Edge for the PSVR2 launch, it didn't seem to grab the attention of many, but the enhancements here go deep, meaning the gunplay, storytelling, improved graphics, and adaptive trigger and haptic support are way more impressive than many of us could have expected, and the game turned out to be really fun.
Came in, threads were made.
Sporting a unique art style and managing to seamlessly combine rail shooters with the rhythm genre, Pistol Whip really is in a league of its own. The free DLC has been nothing short of spectacular, plus the sharper visuals and new Sense controller haptics make Pistol Whip feel right at home on PSVR 2.
Crossfire Sierra Squad feels like an off-the-rails version of the arcade classic Time Crisis. The single-player campaign is just the beginning, with the real fun being the 50 co-op missions that let you and a friend take down thousands of enemies in a variety of environments. The developers have made countless improvements to the game since launch, including manual reloads, making it play better than ever.
Hey you guys, we're only halfway through, and I can't believe all the great games that have been relegated to the back half of this list. And if you think there haven't been enough exclusives so far, or that there's too many multi-platform games here, I mean, I get it. But you need to play these games on PSVR 2, with better visuals from the use of DFR, eye tracking support, adaptive trigger support, and awesome Sense controller and headset haptics. These aren't just the best versions of each game, they're actually more immersive and way more fun because of it. But these aren't even the best games PSVR 2 has to offer. So, settle in. The best is yet to come. Until Mario Kart VR is a thing, we've got a super fun kart racer on PSVR 2 called Galaxy Kart, running at a super smooth 90 frames native, featuring a ton of colorful tracks, plus plenty of vehicles and racers to choose from, each with their own special attack. It feels great to play with two Sense controllers, but if you've got a racing rig, you've got to hook it up for some truly immersive kart racing.
Recruit.
I'm constantly shocked that we don't have more games like Hubris in VR. It's a great blend of platforming, climbing, shooting, exploration, and crafting, all wrapped up in a decent, unobtrusive sci-fi narrative. It's a bit on the easy side, but the realistic world and epic soundtrack kept me engaged until the very end.
You would get a Vion sales tour, but we clearly don't have the time.
A roguelike RTS set in the Stellaris universe, Ghost Signal sets you on a journey through space to battle enemy ships, fight bosses, and collect loot that'll change the trajectory of each run. For a game that isn't even in the genre or IP that I've ever really cared about before, Ghost Signal was the only game I played for weeks, a true hidden gem.
This is it, Operator. Conrad's deepest subconscious.
When I was a kid, I used to dream about being able to control items with my mind. And somehow, Synapse is the first VR game to give me telekinesis in any meaningful way. The skill tree is packed with awesome abilities. The beautiful black and white environments contrast with streaks of neon color. And the voices of David Hayter and Jennifer Hale are the cherry on top. Say what you want to about the game's length. Synapse is just too fun to pass up.
It's not often a game comes along that speaks to both retro gamers and VR gamers. But here we are. Arcade Paradise VR lets you run your father's little laundromat that just so happens to have a couple of arcade machines in the back room. But over time, and without permission, you start expanding the laundromat, and in doing so, add more and more arcade units to the mix.
In the absence of Astrobot on PSVR 2, developer Toast Interactive stepped up and brought us Max Mustard. It's a great third-person platformer with colourful environments, bouncy music, and plenty of first-person interactions to keep us entertained while we wait for Sony to get their act together.
Known for intense tactical gameplay and variety of social game modes like TTT and crossplay that ensures lobbies are always full, Pavlov is one of the best multiplayer first-person shooters we've ever played. On PSVR 2, we, yet again, get the best version of the game with better-looking environments, haptics, and adaptive trigger support.
Focusing far more on gameplay than story, Song in the Smoke might be the best VR survival game of all time. Every weapon and tool needs to be crafted by hand, and every step forward is plagued by danger. And with Rekindled, the team over at 17-Bit was able to utilize all of PSVR 2's features to make an already awesome game even better.
Demeo brings tabletop RPGs to life, offering a social and strategic gaming experience for up to 4 players online. With multiple quests and warriors to choose from, Demeo never feels like the same game twice, plus playing on PSVR 2 with amazing haptics and environmental detail really brings the genre to life.
Go back to the abyss!
Next one, dear. Don't get too close. We don't know if they're infected.
For all the zombie games on PSVR 2, Warner Dev Studios' Propagation Paradise Hotel stands out as one of the most polished. It's on the shorter side, with a campaign you can finish in under 4 hours, but there's no filler here. Every hallway is drenched in blood and littered with zombies. The sound design is excellent, and there are some pretty epic boss fights here too.
What is that?
Max, are you there?
The Metro games are classic, and Metro VR Awakening is a great prequel set in the now familiar post-apocalyptic underground tunnels below Moscow. There are plenty of weapons, enemies, and environments that make Awakening feel like a proper prequel, and the VRAF interactions of cranking your battery charger and wiping the debris off your gas mask make you realize that Metro seems like a series that should have been in VR all along.
There's no way to play Phasmophobia and not experience some level of jank. But the fact that almost everyone I've played with immediately gets hooked and can't stop playing means there's something special here. Getting to go into haunted locations with your friends, with a huge variety of upgradable ghost hunting equipment in tow, is some of the most fun I've had in VR.
Quill might be the cutest mascot VR's ever seen, which makes protecting her through both graphically stunning Moss games feel extra harrowing. Moss Books 1 and 2 are third-person puzzle platformers with plenty of first-person interactions, but my guess is the endearing story is what you'll walk away remembering the most.
Ancient Dungeon is a perfect game, exploring the super high-res voxel art dungeons, trying to survive, with every relic you pick up being a curse or a blessing, changing the way you play that run, making every run unique. As if that wasn't enough, the developers are adding even more content and 3-player online co-op to the PSVR 2 version soon.
Beat Saber has been around for so long that some people might have gone from obsessing over it to forgetting about it altogether. But for those new to VR, there's hundreds of hours of fun here. Since launch, Beat Games has added multiplayer, tripled the number of free tracks that are included, offered up a ridiculous amount of paid DLC, and, in my book at least, are still the kings of arcade VR rhythm games.
There are very few games that I have hundreds of hours in, but Walkabout Mini Golf is one that keeps pulling me back in. There's 8 included courses and about 20 paid DLC courses to choose from, not to mention new game modes that let you race to the end or all play at the same time, making it endlessly replayable.
Very few studios understand how to get the most out of hardware the way that the small team over at Vertigo Robot does. And Red Matter 1 and 2 prove it with insanely high-res graphics and super slick frame rates. The first one's more of a straightforward puzzle game, while Red Matter 2 adds stealth mechanics, platforming, and combat to the mix.
Something just doesn't add up.
Objects that they use as conduits between worlds.
When Perp started advertising Madison as the scientifically scariest game ever made, it raised a few eyebrows. We've played scary games, lots of them, and some of them were downright terrifying. Fortunately, or unfortunately, Madison VR lived up to the hype and it's panic attack inducing from start to finish. But Madison's story and puzzles are great too, making it more than just a bunch of scares.
My son!
VR Skater is the closest VR has ever come to proper Tony Hawk games with great courses and a pretty awesome soundtrack. That said, it might have the steepest learning curve in VR history, but that just means once you get the hang of it and are able to combine tricks, grinds, and manuals into massive combos, you feel like a total badass.
Essentially Diablo in VR, Legendary Tales lets you head out alone or with friends, take down enemies and bosses, grab a ton of loot, and level up your character in every way imaginable. The possibilities are endless. Want to be a magic user, a stealth archer, a warrior? It's totally up to you. It's not easy though, so be prepared for a challenge.
Before we get to the top 5, we need to throw out a few honorable mentions that we really wish could have found a place on this list. For one, Cube VR is a super relaxing, absolutely beautiful Minecraft-inspired world with fun crafting mechanics and has a ton of great updates on the way. Classic rail shooter Res Infinite has never been better than it is on PSVR 2, with stunning visuals and intense haptics. And then there's Happy Funland that does a killer job of world building while you explore a haunted amusement park filled to the brim with fun jabs at Disney. But those aren't even all the ones we wish we had room for. Ultra Wings 2, Windlands 2, Cosmonius High, The Last Clockwinder, Sushi Ben, Vegas Infinite, Runner, Snow Scout, and Creed all provide unique experiences in VR, and we just needed to give them a quick shout out before getting to the top 5. When you first jump into single-player extraction shooter Into the Radius, it comes off as kind of inaccessible and almost overly complicated, but it doesn't take long to get into the groove. Head out on missions to retrieve items from the anomaly zone, scavenge the wasteland, and defend yourself from countless enemies and slowly build up your stash and arsenal to take on bigger and more deadly foes. You've never played a game like this before in VR, and you really need to.
Balanced nutrition.
Zombie games are a dime a dozen, but what Skydance Games has done to the genre with the Saints and Sinners games is special. You can ignore the story and focus on scavenging junk for hours on end, collecting enough raw materials to craft new weapons, upgrade your character, and craft plenty of supplies to keep you healthy. Chapter 2 Retribution feels like a 15-hour expansion pack to the original, but it's hard to complain when it comes with brand new locations, and a chainsaw.
Bounce right off it.
With the endless possibilities, open world, and open universe nature of the game, the fact that Hello Games got No Man's Sky up and running in VR at all is pretty impressive. But the developers over there are tenacious, and unlike other teams, they've never been happy with making things look and play just good enough. The PSVR 2 version of No Man's Sky has been updated again and again, to the point where it's one of the most beautiful games on the platform, and one you'll spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours in.
Here we go.
Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 4 Remake couldn't feel more different, with Village staying in first person the whole time and featuring far more VR AF interactions, and RE4 switching to third person every time you do a roundhouse kick, open a door, or climb a ladder. But both games are beautiful and deliver the AAA experience VR gamers are looking for, with great stories, deep mechanics, and a ton of replayability.
Help. Thirsty.
The most surprising thing about playing Gran Turismo 7 in VR isn't how realistic it looks, although it does look realistic, or how different each of the 500 cars feel, and they all do feel different. It's that regardless of whether you're a racing sim fan or not, you will get pulled in. The gameplay loop of taking on new challenges, making more money, winning new cars, and doing all the daily challenges never ceases to be fun. It feels great to play with a DualSense controller with some of the most amazing haptics we've ever seen, but it feels incredible to play with a racing rig.
Find your line.
Okay, you guys, this has been a crazy long video. And worse, it's one that's about to be outdated with Behemoth, Alien Rogue Incursion, Hitman World of Assassination, Zombie Army VR, Flatout VR, Wanderer the Fragments of Fate, Arcanage, Ghost Town, Firmament, Wrath Aeon of Ruin, Death Relives, Pirates VR Jolly Roger, RoboQuest VR, and Aces of Thunder all coming to PSVR 2 in the next few months. Needless to say, it's a good time to be a VR gamer.